I'm Benjamin Bergen. I'm the president of the Council of Canadian Innovators. We're a national business council that works with scaling technology companies. And for the past few years, I've been interviewing CEOs from across Canada to learn about their businesses and learn about what are the public policy issues that are really animating their companies. And today I've got the privilege of speaking with Sam Jenkins, the CEO of Punchcard, an Edmonton-based company that works with ambitious mid-size entrepreneur enterprise companies from not just here in Canada, but across North America, working specifically on custom software, web and mobile apps, and other tools. Sam, thanks for joining me this day. And to kick things off, can you give us a bit of background on the origin story of Punchcard?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on the five questions here today. Really excited to talk about our story and where we're going. Because I don't think our story is particularly unique. My business partner and I, we founded another startup. We built a startup in the healthcare space prior to building Punchcard. And as we were exiting that, like many folks exiting their first or second or third venture, we had to figure out, are we going to go find a new job or are we going to build something new? And we chose, obviously, to continue building here in Canada. And really in 2015, 2016, when we were starting Punchcard, we took all of the knowledge, all of the learnings that we built from building that first product and executed with a clear belief that technology should feel like momentum, not overhead. We saw an enormous gap between business strategy and technology innovation, specifically in the mid-market here in Canada. And we built an organization that was oriented around being a partner in product development, not just a traditional consultancy, but an organization that could help really ship product. And now we're almost 10 years later, close to 60 employees, and continuing to scale and continuing to do some amazing things for our Canadian partners.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And so, what was that sort of initial gap in the market that you were trying to solve and really trying to address?
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw many of our competitors who were really great at writing code, but not necessarily shipping product. And so we tried to marry the effective implementation of kind of product management thinking to software development. And we like to call it focusing on outcomes rather than outputs. And I think even today, as we see the advent of AI and more AI-driven software development, that's becoming more and more important. Are we building the right thing as opposed to just shipping code?
Okay. So I think, you've worked with over 150 organizations across North America, everything from utilities to not-for-profits. Can you maybe give sort of an illustrative example or sort of the best narrative in terms of what that actually looks like for maybe one of the partners that you guys have worked with over the last almost decade?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question because there's an enormous amount of variety, I think, in the organizations that we've been able to work with. The cornerstone to that, I think, is transformation. So we've had the opportunity to transform organizations who focus on regulatory services. So, for example, we've been working with the College of Registered Nurses of Alberta for the past several years, helping them move completely digital. Their onboarding and licensing processes have gone from 7 months down to about 15 minutes. Again, this is about helping a regulatory organization make sure that they're staffing properly here in our province. Another example would be working with our partners at Birds Canada. We've worked with them to build citizen science platforms to gather data around bird ecology or bird research so that they can tackle hard challenges like climate change. But I think some of the projects that I'm most excited about are when we're working with early stage startups and helping transform kind of what they're trying to do. We get to take on a bit of their vision, a bit of their opportunity to help transform what they're working on. For example, we're working with a really innovative startup down in the Valley right now where they're looking to transform education, the U.S. education system using digital tools. And we've worked with them very closely over the past couple of years to help them build really what's going to be next for education.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff, and great that it kind of covers the waterfront in terms of everything from utilities to government organizations to not for profits. When you're sort of looking at sort of the portfolio of companies that you work with every day, as you kind of look and sort of zoom in on Canada a little bit more specifically, how do you sort of read the state of our innovation economy here in Canada?
think that's a really interesting question for the right now, because I mean, you work in this space every day, um, but I think we've seen a massive shift in the past 5 years and an enormous shift in the past year. So, if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, um, I would actually say that the innovation ecosystem was kind of toiling in a little bit of quietness or obscurity. And I think over this past year, specifically since the new administration came into play down in the U.S., we've seen this enormous uh, not even resurgence, but like explosion of awareness for people and organizations in the innovation space. Because I think we recognize that the future of Canada's economy is going to be built on top of digital innovation, AI, and some incredible knowledge workers that choose to call home here in Canada. But I think there's lots of work to be done in terms of procurement, in terms of digital infrastructure, data and digital sovereignty in general, so that Canada can be even more ready for the growth that's going to have to happen over the next 5 years.
Um, yeah, no, I think, we've definitely seen within our own, organization just the amount of transformation that we've seen given the last, sort of year and a half with obviously political changes, but coupled also then with technology changes. Would you say that the momentum and this might be sort of an obvious question is definitely in that sort of AI space and where things are moving in that front?
Well, I think AI is an enabler at this point, and I mean, the number of organizations that are saying, "Oh, we're building an AI strategy" or whatnot. I mean, pretty much every board, every C-suite is having the same type of conversation. But this is baked into the thesis of our organization. Most organizations don't have a technology problem; they have a business or a clarity problem. And I think as leaders in organizations, and this is something that Punchcard's trying to do every single day, we're trying to help separate novelty from impact. We're trying to identify the real jobs that need to be done using AI and technology platforms. We want to make sure that we're connecting the right AI tool to the right business need as well. There's a lot of opportunity here to waste time and resources when we're talking about AI. But I like to talk about, or I like to use a phrase that was taught to me by a mentor years ago: small experiments with radical intent. And I think that's where Canadians are actually quite well tuned to be able to be ready for that kind of future by taking small experiments with AI and building things that really do change the world.
Yeah. No, well, and I think there's obviously been a lot of conversations around, are people using the wrong platforms and ultimately solving the wrong problems? I know you've, written a bit on this particular piece. Anything else there that you would want to maybe sort of like kind of highlight or double down on?
Well, I think it comes down to building quickly, and I think this is how we be competitive. If we aren't experimenting, if we aren't prototyping quickly and building what matters, we're going to be left behind. And to be fair, I think this means that we're going to have to rebuild, some of our processes and practices, not only on in terms of how we build software, how we build products, but also how we regulate, how we legislate, certainly how we govern our organizations going to the future. We cannot be left behind by not taking those small steps quickly. And so that's something that I'd encourage other CEOs in our network that, not only take those small experiments, but talk about them, broadcast them, and share how much value we can create by taking small steps and moving quickly.
Yeah, no, I think the the ability to share what folks are working on is definitely, an aspect or hopefully a strength that members get out of, being part of the council. In terms of how, Punchcard is operating and the services that you provide, what does that look like being powered by AI?
Oh, that's a really great question. If we were having this question or this conversation 2 years ago, I would say, oh well, we're going to be, there's going to be some AI enablement in terms of how we build and how we operate. But the fundamental truth is that AI is underpinning every single part of our organization today, and from everything from how we write user stories on our product side to how we're prototyping from a UX perspective, and certainly how we're writing better code. But it's not simply about using the tools blindly. It's about treating AI as a type of employee in our organization. If we aren't embedding, validating, and certainly trying to understand how we can do our jobs as humans more effectively using AI, we're probably going to be left behind. That is one of the things that keeps me up at night as a CEO in an organization that builds technology. I know that our competition isn't just local organizations or organizations overseas. It's organizations who are starting to use AI in new and novel ways to be able to build better software, build better products, and address customer needs far faster, far more effectively than we were yesterday. So, we're definitely on our toes and leaning forward in terms of making sure that we can use these tools in ways that are adding a ton of value to the people that we're serving.
Yeah, no, that's great points. And one of the things that obviously, focusing on sort of the micro piece there, but now sort of zooming out to the macro. Obviously we work to try and help policymakers and government experts understand where there's opportunities for good public policy to help firms like yours. Looking at whether it be the federal or provincial landscape, is there a specific policy or tool or area where the government could implement something that you think would be a game changer in terms of supporting firms?
Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about this in the CCI ecosystem in terms of speeding up procurement for startups and mid-sized firms. I think this stretches into how we think about funding innovation in general. We need to make sure that we're supporting Canadian organizations that are truly Canadian, not just Canadian name only. I mean, we also host a number of ventures within the Punchcard ecosystem, and we have a startup in the public safety space. It is hard to sell into the Canadian public sector, and when it's easier to find our customers elsewhere, that's a really dangerous narrative for Canadian startups and Canadian scale-ups as well. I think we also need to be talking about how digital infrastructure is just as important as physical infrastructure. I mean, we talk about data sovereignty quite a bit and data centers, but we need to fund it, we need to staff it, we need to build it quickly so that we can be as competitive as possible. And then I think continuing the overhaul of the Canadian innovation funding ecosystem, Shred is highly valuable, but can we make it more valuable for Canadian startups and Canadian scale-ups to create the most value possible for Canadians in general? I mean, at the end of the day, we need to build a Canada where building what's next is easier than just maintaining the status quo, which means being able to support risk-taking a little bit more effectively.
Yeah. Look, I think all of those points are definitely valid, and obviously, a lot of the work that we do tries to help unlock that, at the council. And I want to thank you for obviously joining me today in terms of having this conversation. For us at the council, it is really hearing directly from those that are actually building the country and building companies that we're able to affect change and create opportunities. So thank you for sharing a bit more about Punchcard, and thank you for sharing your vision on areas where we can improve public policy to make it better for innovators to be successful globally.
Thank you very much.